All right, shall we get started? Call to order the regular workshop of October 14th, 2020. Let me just see if I can share out my screen. All rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
liberty,
and justice for all.
Just one quick update is obviously the state has extended the not in-person meeting exemption until November 6th, I think it is, but I have a feeling it'll probably get extended again. Again, not ideal to meet over Zoom, but I don't see any real way that we're going to do it otherwise until there's some kind of major breakthrough in terms of vaccination or something like that. So I would be prepared to do this until probably the spring. That's probably the best case scenario, unless the state decides to do away with that, or it gets challenged and we need to start meeting in person, and then we'll have to get really creative with the village hall and see what we can do. There are a few places that have offered up space if we need it to have any kind of in-person meeting. The factory on the corner of Pine Street and Peekskill Road mentioned that they've rented their place out, or they've loaned it out to municipalities to have large meetings. The town, we could probably use something, but then we're going to be meeting outside of the village limits. But all things to take into account as we go forward. Survey for short-term rentals. Do you want to speak to that, Chris?
Well, Deb, do you want to kind of go over the survey first, and then you can kind of talk about next steps?
Sure. Mike, do you mind pulling up the survey? I sent you the link in the email. It's probably, no, I just sent it like 2 minutes ago, so yeah. So we put together, and this is a very brief survey to share with the community, just really seeking feedback. I think we are in a sort of a fact-finding and a listening phase of this part, and it's hard to get public input, even more so because of COVID. And so we're starting with this very basic survey, which I sent around to the board last week. And before posting it and asking Mindy to post in the papers, I just wanted to make sure that there weren't any further edits that anyone wanted made. But, and this is not to replace public meetings in the future, but really just to get the conversation started. And I can export a PDF version of this. And Mindy, there have been some updates made since I sent the PDF around last week. So let me get you the latest version after all edits are made.
Great. Yeah, I mean, once again, we've been
Okay.
talking about this for a few years now, and I think we're probably going to move on this sooner rather than later. I think kind of the will of the board, I believe. I know that we've been discussing this for long enough now that it's been on the radar, not just us, the building inspector. COVID has kind of put a magnifying glass on everything, and yeah, I mean, the other part of it is what's on the website. If you want to speak to that.
Yeah, Chris, if you want to talk about the legislation from.
Sure. So Beacon just passed their short-term rental law in June. Irvington passed it in 2019. Montgomery has a good bill to take a look at. Cornwall. So it's basically the different things for us to consider, including in our law would be whether the rental property is, owner occupied, how many days of the year would we allow for it to be rented, potentially limiting the number of permits that we would have, and then setting up a process for applying annually and ensuring that it's inspected by our building inspector, and just making sure that people follow the laws of Nelsonville in making sure that it's reducing noise, etc. We don't want to take away anybody's opportunity for additional income, certainly, but we just want to make sure that it's safe and reasonable for everybody's enjoyment, and to make sure that we're ensuring long-term rentals for folks who want to stay in our community.
And I think we're also doing this to protect property owners as well, because without the proper insurance and, fire and that kind of thing, they're opening themselves up to major liability.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chris, who enforces the laws in the municipalities and the other municipalities?
It would be the building inspector, because it's it's building zoning laws that are followed, and there's different levels of recourse that you can go to if we find that a owner is not following the rules. And they could get a warning, they could get a fine, they could get their permit taken away if they aren't able to keep up with it. But I think that our survey, short but sweet, and really gets to the heart of a lot of the questions that I think we're considering and want to hear back from the community. So I think we're excited to hear back from folks. We're going to put it out for 3 or 4 weeks, and we'll have it available in paper format too at Village Hall.
Just like the last one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that regardless of what we decide as a board to do, I think we're all in agreement that the current code is really confusing right now on the topic of rentals. So just for that alone, it's worth having this conversation so that we can update that. I remember Dave, Mindy, and I looking at it probably a year ago now, and it was really unhelpful as written.
Well, this is terrific.
And
Yeah, it's very antiquated, right, Dov?
Yeah.
Written from like 1800s.
Yeah.
Orders and
Right.
And the Village of Cold Spring held that meeting, that's got to be over a year ago now, where they really dwelled into the whole issue with probably over, 150, 200 members of the community there in the room. And I think they've kind of let it fall by the wayside as well for the past year. But I think that if, ideally, we would have something similar to Cold Spring, and then we all would have something similar to Phillipsburg, so that it's a standard across the whole area. But we, like everything else, we can't wait for the others, so we'll do it ourselves for now.
I'm trying to remember, Chris, we checked in with the Cold Spring Code Update Committee maybe 6 months ago about their their short-term rental code update. And I think they just pointed us to the draft on their website, that it hasn't gone further. Maybe we should check in again.
yeah, yeah, good idea.
Right. Any questions on that? The survey is going to be going live. When are we planning on doing this?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
All right, well, we want to look it over and make sure there's no edits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I shared it with everyone a week ago. So yeah, please.
Oh, okay, so this new one what was sent tonight is the same thing that was sent a week ago?
I mean, they're very small edits. like in wording, a couple of word changes. So that's why I want to get you an updated PDF. But in general, the concepts are the same.
Okay.
It looks great. So I think.
Are they going to be mailed out, or how's that going to be handled?
It would be preferred to do it online because it's easier to compile the results.
Right.
But if folks don't have access, then we're going to have paper copies available at the village hall.
Just one
Yeah.
quick question. Do we have any idea how many Airbnbs or bed and breakfasts we have in Nelsonville? Any guesstimate?
Yeah, when we looked at this 6 months ago or whatever it was approximately 15 at that time. I haven't done a search recently. I don't know if anybody else has.
It fluctuates depending on time of year.
15 in Nelsonville?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Huh.
We'll do a live search right now online.
No, go ahead. That's what a workshop's for.
Probably all the same zip code. So, I mean, let's see.
That's what, like, yeah.
When I did it, I looked at the map.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there we are.
But I think when we looked at it, Chris, we didn't put in dates. We just, because we wanted to look at like who just has it on the platform.
Yeah.
If you don't put dates.
So yeah, right now it looks like we've only got 3 or 4 that are in the village itself.
Right. That was pre-COVID, so folks who like aren't comfortable
Yeah.
landing
That-
their homes
Yes.
at this time wouldn't be on there.
Oh, and we also checked the other platforms too. I think that was included in the 15. So what was it, like the
VRMO.
VRBO.
RBO? And there was one.
Periodically I go in here and look, and I've seen upwards of like 10 or 12 at one time, but people pull them off and put them back on, and
Right.
Yeah.
it really is fluctuating throughout the year.
Wish I could stay at one of these places myself.
Yeah.
They look so great. Wouldn't that be a nice break?
Just go up the mountain.
House exchange. Let's do a house exchange.
I know. Let's do it. Let's do it.
That'd be fun.
After COVID.
Get through the next winter first.
Yeah.
Anything else on Airbnb before we move on? Or
Yeah, just,
Sure.
we plan to do several hearings on it, so we're not going to be rushing through or anything. But it's a pretty easy bill language for us to be able to work on.
revised fee schedule for the building department. We'll just touch upon that really quick. This is going back probably, once again, about a year, I'm guessing. Bill Bajarski, we've asked him to take a look at our fee schedule and to do some updates to it. Also, the impetus behind it was also the passage of our 5G law. So Dove has been working with him to kind of get the language correct in terms of the small cell sites, if we get permit applications for those. If you saw the newest announcement by Apple and that the new iPhone 12 is going to be purely 5G, we can expect that we will be getting permits probably pretty soon. Anything else? Bill's been working on it. He gave us a draft earlier today. There's some language that needs to get tweaked in it. We're going to bring it up at our regular meeting and talk about it a little more in depth there. Mindy, can you see if Bill can actually be on our next meeting?
Yes, I think he's intending to.
All right, great.
Great.
Winter parking in Adams Avenue. Dave, do you want to talk about, you and Mark, you went down there and looked at it?
I think we ended up with 7 spaces, I think, maybe 8, maybe 6 on the, what would that be, the south side of the road it's on?
Yes.
All right, and the thing is, it's there for parking, but Mark's putting signs up stating that you got to move your car by 9 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I talked to Mark, and if they move the car to the other side of the street, let him plow it, then they put the car back. But the whole trick is, if they don't move their cars, then they're going to lose they're gonna lose the right to park there.
Yep.
You know? Because that's what it comes down to, you know, people don't want to move their car. Same thing goes for the Secor lot, the Masonic Lodge lot. You know, they have to move their car in order for Mark to plow.
Well, Mindy can speak to it as well as I. There'll be kind of a zero tolerance policy when it comes to Adams. This is going to be kind of an experiment. Stevie Miranda, who lives there, is going to be watching this like a hawk. And if
Yep.
it's not moved and it impacts plowing in that street, we will hear about it immediately before the snow stops falling. So,
Well, I kind of like stopped the line for the parking at Stevie's fence.
yep.
So that they can push the snow past his garage and everything, you know, at first. And then once they move their car, he can go right through he has MV plows, and he can go right through there and push it right out of the way.
Yep.
So it'll be clean, which is,
Yeah.
nobody ever moved their cars before. They just left them there.
Mark did say that moving forward with Adams Avenue, once there is buildings or a house put on that other side of the street, that's going to kind of impact where we put our snow. So we're going to have to sit down and discuss that, because right now that's kind of the de facto dumping area for all the snow because it's a vacant piece of land. So whether it's, I'm not sure. We'd have to sit down and talk to him exactly, you know, how he's utilizing it now and where, you know, we will put stuff in the future.
But there's options for that.
I've never seen how they plow. I heard that they plow it straight to the end of Division Street, then push it straight across Bank Street down the hill.
Yeah.
So,
And that's fine until we get into issues of salt and all that stuff, because that's a protected wetland down there. So, I think their initial plow, they push over there because it's untreated. But then once, you know, things start to build up, I think he's been kind of moving it over to Adams, or pushing it up on that sidewalk there.
Mike, can part of that conversation also include the snow at the Masonic Lodge? Just because the new garden that Heidi has been taking the lead on, which is really turning out so lovely. Usually that had been where the snow was piled up for the winter. But again, piling it there now that there are all of these perennial and shrubs wouldn't be the ideal location. So I don't know, just as part of that conversation.
Heidi, is there going to be, are you putting any kind of rock border or anything around that? Or is there going to be anything there that could be damaged by a plow, I guess is what I'm trying to get.
Well, I think if the snow is piled on top of the plants, it would damage them actually. In terms of a rock border, I had thought it would be perfect if we could put some rocks along the edge or branch or like small logs or something just to demarcate the area of the garden. But I wasn't sure if that made sense in case like a hiker tripped over them, or I wasn't sure. So, but I think if the snow is piled on top of the plants, it would probably kill them. Yeah. It's not I agree that it's not a good idea to put a big pile of snow there.
All right, so we'll talk to Mark about plowing. More than likely he'll plow from the woods out. It's just where it's going to go after that, somewhere along Secor Street. Anything else on winter parking? So that we're remarking the lot at Secor to make that clearer. He's putting up arrowed signs there to show the correct side to park on and the head-in parking. And then we're marking Adams Avenue as well to make that, you know, crystal clear to residents that things need to be moved. So I think we've got a pretty good handle on winter parking.
Right, is that diagonal on Adams?
No, it's
parallel.
Parallel, okay.
I went down with my truck and I parked it on the parallel or diagonal with like you're talking about. It took up the road.
Mm-hmm.
So if mine's 20 feet long, some cars are 14 feet long. So mine sticks out. You can hit it with a plow.
Right.
So
Okay.
we went the other way with it.
Okay.
It should be enough to suffice for, you know, what we need. I think we've gotten maybe 2 or 3 complaints a year for people needing parking. And, you know, Secor I have seen full on occasion, but also I think people from Cold Spring were utilizing it as well. So this gives at least another option for our residents on Division Street mainly that don't have driveways. Optimum, want to talk about that, Mindy?
So we had a government affairs person finally pay some attention to our pleas. And so me and Mike and Chris were on a conversation, and I was shocked that they admit that a lot of the equipment around is probably old and defective. And believe it or not, when I got to work yesterday, there was a technician working up there on the pole, on the box for a very, very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you see them around sometimes, but I've never seen them for that period of time. So I do believe that what we were told, you know, I just think that, you know, the public should be made aware that, you know, we acted on it, and it does seem like they're following through with what they said they were going to do, and we're going to get a report back in 2 weeks. And what they're doing is to see if they can help speed things up, like the things that people are doing they should not have to be doing. So you know, there was an admission of that, and I was very surprised at that. You know, that was a big thing.
Their justification, the two takeaways that I had was, one, that they have a rollout of a new product coming where it's basically
Eventually, yeah.
fiber optic line straight into your house in order to compete with, you know, some of the other companies out there. Right now it's only made it up to Westchester, and I guess we're the next on the list or something like that. But, you know, that's going to come with an increased cost. Actually, three takeaways. The second takeaway was, yes, they know that some of their equipment is, you know, quote unquote antiquated, but they will not fix it until they reach a threshold in the community of complaints. So it's good that we compile these, and it's good that people call them and let them know when they're having issues, because they wait until they get a certain amount of complaints in a node, and then they come in and they'll, once it hits that threshold, they'll actually address it.
So Mike, if I may ask, you kind of like were in the forefront where we see everybody complaining on Facebook about Optimum. You took the initiative, the Village of Nelsonville, to approach Optimum to say, what the heck are you doing? You know, because I know I use the computer and it's terrible. And
I mean, every one of
thank
us.
you.
We all had our own computer issues with Optimum over the quarantine, you know, just all of us working from home. I have some connections through my job of one of the higher ups that are kind of in charge of the maintenance department at Altice Optimum. So I had some work done here back in like April or May. And I knew that there were issues, but the amount of people that were complaining, not just in Nelsonville, but in Cold Spring and Phillipstown and Beacon and, you know, throughout the whole Hudson Valley, it really just spoke to there being a much larger issue. So Mindy did reach out to them, and they, you know, they were very open, honest, and I think professional with us. And, you know, they made a pledge that is, we see the problems come along, if we let them know, that they'll address them to the best of their ability. So, I mean, it's the only game in town right now, so we gotta make it work the best we can.
Yeah.
And they committed to doing a 360 review within the 2-week timeframe Mindy mentioned, so that's 1 week away from now. And that's to look at the performance over the last few months and see what has been done as far as calls that have come in for repair, and see what kind of infrastructure improvement they might be able to make. So they promised to get back to us within another week from now.
The third takeaway was that basically he openly admitted that you know, when you call Optimum and you say you have speed problems and they try to sell you the next level of service, don't buy it, because they don't have the infrastructure to support it, and they're selling something they can't live up to.
Yep, they said you should not need increased speed.
Increased
Oh,
bandwidth.
too late,
We shouldn't
too
have to
late,
buy
too late.
anything else.
Chris, the one thing I want to say, because I've had to help 2 neighbors that are older and aren't computer savvy, when they call, they just don't understand you have to go through all those prompts to eventually get a person.
Mhm.
So they end up hanging up the phone. So that call is not registering with Optimum.
Yeah.
So that's my concern if they don't get enough calls because somebody didn't have the patience to hit the buttons. And I know it's frustrating. I've learned how to get around it. So that's why I've helped 2 people.
Yeah.
But I hope they realize that. But I trust you people and it's in your hands. And thank you. Thank you. They cost a fortune, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
Cost a fortune, and right now we're kind of, Altice bought up Optimum. So you have a European French company that is overseeing Optimum, and there's some disconnect between technology as well. So they're playing catch up too.
And
Thank
Mindy
you,
did
thank you,
have-
Bree, for taking the charge on that. That's really great. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
So
Sorry. Mindy also passed on specific issues on Division Street that a lot of folks were having. So hopefully they took a hard look at that street in particular as well.
Yeah, specific people. I knew that there were significant problems that we could pinpoint. So, and I let both of the people know that I did that too, because I didn't want to share somebody's information without letting them know. And they both were very, very appreciative. And it's hopefully it'll all work out. That's all.
So from now on, when you see people write complaints on Facebook, just tell them to report it, and make us aware of it, and we'll pass
Yep.
it as well.
Yep, because we got the contact now.
Michael, I don't see the newspaper here. I hope this makes the paper so people will see that we had the initiative to do something about it. And I know my next door, Mitch, Amy, and Drea, they were working from home, and he's a doctor, and he said it was unbearable trying to do his work. But I will say this, a couple of months ago, we had to have Optimum come to the house, and the repairman was very nice. He said what you said, Mindy and Chris, the equipment outside on the poles is so old. It hasn't been updated. I think he said in 15, 20 years. So I hope it gets in the paper.
That's definitely true, and from what he was saying on our call the other day, they're trying to make it last, I believe, as long as they can until they get this new major capital infrastructure project up here, so that they're not put new equipment in just to tear it out in 6 months. So
Thank you again.
office update and court update, Mindy.
Yep. So we did start to open the court little by little. I was hearing like conflicting things from the other courts, and basically what it came down to is that the state who operates the courts have given no guidance whatsoever. They've kind of been leaving it up to the individual courts themselves to do things as they feel fit. And so some of the courts have opened and some of the courts have not opened. And, some are letting their prosecutors negotiate by mail. We do not have the luxury of doing that, because although we have a prosecutor, he doesn't handle the vehicular traffic stuff. That he just handles the misdemeanor stuff that goes beyond vehicle and traffic. So, I had to figure out a way to get court going again, because it's revenue. Judge Zenz is getting paid. I'm a clerk, I'm getting paid. And the cops are writing tickets, and, no one's coming in. So anyway, what we decided to do is I'm bringing in like 3 cases a month to start. And with that, we can have the amount of people that we need and remain socially distanced in the courtroom. We had 1 case today because we had a criminal matter that was pending, and we had the attorney, Judge Tendy, 2 sheriffs, and the defendant, myself, and Judge Zenz. Okay, so 7 people, and we were able to stay 6 feet apart. We had our masks, everything was, appropriate, and it worked out fine. So I think that's going to be fine. So we'll be able to start getting revenue again, you know, through the court and get that moving again. The office, I want to go to right now because of the uptick that we're seeing. I'd like to go to by appointment only because people are comfortable just walking into the office now. And like, it's okay for the most part because I can see who's coming in. But there's been 2 instances where once I was down in the courtroom and somebody came in, and once I was in the bathroom and somebody came in. And thank God they were wearing a mask. But I think that I'd like it to be for now by appointment. So I ran that by Mike, and I just wanted to let everybody know that I think we're going to do that for a little while, just to see how things settle down again, because things were settling down and I was getting a little comfortable. But I think I'm not too comfortable right now. It's changing.
No, and the way that the building is set up, I mean, just leave the door locked, and you know, it's at your discretion if you want to ask somebody to come back or to make an appointment. Again, it's at whatever your comfort level is. I'm not going to ask you to put yourself at risk any more than anybody else. But there's definitely been a kind of an increase in the area. I think we were discussing it tonight before the meeting that Cold Spring Pizza is closed until Thursday because of a possible exposure down there. All of the school districts all seem to have positive cases, though Haldane doesn't, knock on wood. As the weather gets colder, it's gonna come back more and more. So any input from the board in terms of that?
You know, maybe during office hours for this purpose of the survey, maybe you could just put like a stack outside, and if folks want to come by, and then bring it back in.
Oh, absolutely.
At daytime.
Absolutely.
Diane, who's taking it.
Absolutely. I actually have a thing that hangs on the file cabinet that I could probably put outside and put a bunch of them in there.
Yeah, as long as they don't fly away.
Yeah, but
Thanks.
yeah, but people didn't just, I don't think people just randomly came in for the other surveys either. They, you know, the people who needed them called first and made sure we had them, or emailed, or, you know, so,
Okay.
but yeah, that's fine. I will not hamper getting those out. That will get done.
Yeah, no, I support that, what Mike said. I think being cautious is always a good thing in terms of public health and what you feel most comfortable with. I know my employer has been very flexible in that regard, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that we have to just follow our own instincts with this thing. You know, everybody has a different comfort level. I don't know. You know, it's tough to walk around like and be nervous all the time, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
That's my work day.
I know. I can't even imagine.
Be careful. So I have faith in it.
Yeah.
Anything else in terms of what was on the agenda this evening, or anything else that needs to be discussed?
Yeah, Mindy, did you contact Andrew?
I reached out to them, Dave, and they haven't gotten back to me as usual. So I will do that again tomorrow.
If they don't reach back to you, call Tony.
The electrician?
Yeah.
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 You can
Okay.
even I know that Tony, Ricky, and
Andrew Padella.
Alan, I know they're extremely busy. I ran into Andrew out in B&L, and he's so busy that he's looking for people to become electricians if anyone's interested. But I mean, you can even try Steve Burke. I've had good luck with him as well.
Okay.
This is for the electric bill in that building, correct?
Yeah,
That-
for the
that plug.
electric in the park.
That plug in that park that's not working he's gonna put lights on a tree this year. You gotta run a 100-foot cord from the other building out when there's a plug 10 feet from where the tree stands.
You know what? I like Steve Burke. I'm gonna call them too. I'll call Steve.
Yeah, Steve.
He's a
good.
nice guy.
Did a bunch of stuff for me here.
Mhm. Okay.
Anything else? I owe you guys pictures for the kiosk, right? Let's see.
Thanks.
looking at, I think I have them here on my desk, so as soon as I'm off the Zoom call, I will look. That way you don't have to digitize stuff that's already been scanned.
Ah, okay.
And don't want to take up a lot of time, but just FYI, I did tune in to the Cold Spring water report, which
Yeah.
obviously impacts us in Nelsonville, folks who are receiving public water supply. Basically, I think the takeaway was that they were looking into alternative water sources as demand increased. And one of the major issues was that the upper reservoir they thought was going to have an issue with opening the valve and potentially causing other issues where they weren't able to maybe close it again, but they have been able to open it. So it kind of made a lot of the alternative recommendations from the report moot. But there were a lot of good recommendations to increase water supply over time. And we do have that use of the upper reservoir where I guess they were unsure whether they would or not. So I think it was not as dire as it could have been, but keeping an eye on that. And that water report was made public. I'm sure if anybody wants to take a look at it, I'm sure that that Cold Spring will be talking about it more in their upcoming meetings now that the impact is less than they thought.
That's a conversation that goes back probably 20 years now. So, and they know through numerous different incarnations of engineering reports that their dams need work. And yeah, I mean, it's basically our version, you know, us with the sewer, that's the Cold Spring and the dam. So they need to come up with how they're going to fund that. And I think part of this was all because they're looking into the connection with the New York City aqueduct as well. But they can't make a cutover because they can't charge us for water. We'd have to be our own kind of water.
And Heidi, I'll have to go over to see your little forests over there because
Me too.
I'm a gardener too. So I want
Come see it. Come see it, Gloria. And if you have seeds, you can put them in. It's looking good, I think.
All right.
It's gonna be so pretty, and we'll just keep expanding more into the woods.
Oh, good.
You know, getting out the ugly stuff and putting in nice things.
Okay, great. And thank you so much, Board. I appreciate it.
Oh, sure.
Thanks so much for all your hard work, Heidi and Jerry.
Oh, goodness.
Yes.
My
Everybody
pleasure.
else who's
So
pitched
much
in.
fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we should also say that Heidi has contributed a lot of her own budget for this initiative. So you paid for the compost and the wood chips and the
Oh,
plants.
no problem. I'm
We're
happy
really
to do
Thank
it.
you.
We're really
I'm
grateful.
happy to do it. Very happy to.
Thank you, Heidi. Is there
Thank you. Thank you all for wanting to do it.
Is there anything else before we adjourn? No? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night.
Good
Night
night.
all.
Night.
Good night.
Bye.